I never thought something as simple as hiring a cleaner would turn my entire week upside down. Honestly, I just wanted help. My job was exhausting, my schedule unpredictable, and my house had slowly slipped into a state that embarrassed even me. So that morning before leaving for work, I messaged a woman named Elena, a cleaner recommended by a colleague. She seemed polite, professional, and thankfully, available on short notice. I left the house early, rushing through my usual routine: coffee, keys, bag. Before locking the door, I paused for a moment, scanning the quiet hallway. Everything looked normal, painfully normal. If only I had known what would happen a few hours later, I might have paid more attention. Around noon, I was in the middle of reviewing some reports when my phone started vibrating. I almost ignored it, unknown number. But something told me to pick up. Hello. First there was only breathing. Shaky breathing. Then a soft voice, barely more than a whisper. "Ma'am, this is Elena. I think you need to come home." My stomach tightened. Is something wrong? Her voice cracked. "There's someone in your house." The office around me faded into silence. For a moment, I couldn't even form a sentence. My mind raced. Did I lock the door? Was she mistaken? Was this some kind of misunderstanding? "Elena, tell me exactly what you saw." "I don't know," she whispered. "I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate. And I know you said no one would be home." She paused and I heard the tremble in her breath. "I'm sure of it. You need to come." My hands went cold. I stood up so fast my chair slid across the floor. My coworkers stared at me, but I couldn't explain. I couldn't speak. All I knew was one thing: someone was in my house. Someone who shouldn't be. And Elena wasn't the kind of person who would make up something like that. "Leave the house immediately," I told her, my own voice shaking. "Go outside. Stay where there are people. I'm on my way." But just as I said it, I heard a faint noise from her side of the call, a slow creak like a door being pushed open. "Wait," she whispered. I think they heard me." My heart nearly stopped. And that was the moment I realized this was no misunderstanding, no trick of the house settling, no imagination. I don't remember leaving the office. All I remember is the rush, my breath shaking, my hands trembling around the steering wheel, the world outside blurring into streaks of color as I drove far beyond the speed limit. All the while, Elena's last whispered words echoed in my mind. I think they heard me. I called her again. Once. Twice. 3 times. No answer. Each ring felt like a punch to the chest. My house was only 15 minutes from work, but every red light, every slow driver felt like a deliberate obstruction. By the time I turned onto my street, I was shaking so hard I could barely keep my foot on the pedal. And then I saw her. Elena was standing on the sidewalk across from my house, hugging herself tightly, her eyes wide and unfocused. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in the span of an hour. I pulled over, jumped out of the car, and ran to her. "Elena, are you hurt?" She just shook her head, lips pressed together like she was trying not to cry. It wasn't until I touched her arm that she finally looked at me. "He walked past me," she whispered. A chill crawled up my spine. "Who?" I didn't see his face. I was cleaning the living room and heard footsteps upstairs. I thought maybe it was you coming home early. But when I called your name, the steps stopped. Completely. She swallowed. I went to the bottom of the stairs, and then the bedroom door creaked open. Every hair on my arm stood up. What happened next? "He didn't run," she said, her voice barely audible. "He came down the stairs slowly, calm, like he lived there." Tears filled her eyes. I stepped back. I didn't know what to do. And then he just walked past me and went out the back door. The back door. My stomach twisted so violently I felt sick. The back door had been sticking lately. It made a loud scrape when opened. I would have heard it easily if I were home. "Elena, why didn't you call the police?" "I did," she said quickly. "But they told me to leave the property immediately and wait for them outside. They're on the way." Just then, as if summoned by her words, I heard the distant wail of sirens growing closer. But instead of relief, a strange icy dread settled over me. Because if the intruder had simply walked out the back door, why wasn't the door open now? Slowly, against every instinct screaming inside me, I turned to look at my house. The windows were still. The curtains untouched. The doors closed. Too closed. Elena tugged at my sleeve. Ma'am, there's something else. I turned back to her, heart pounding. In your bedroom, she whispered, shaking. He had things. Your things. Like he'd been staying there. A cold breath left my lungs. Staying there? How long? How had I not noticed? My chest tightened as the sirens grew louder, echoing through the neighborhood. I stared at my silent, tidy house, my safe place, and realized something horrifying. This wasn't a random break-in. Someone had been living in my home, watching me, learning my routines. Asterisk. And whoever he was, the police arrived within minutes. 3 cars, lights flashing across the quiet street. Neighbors peeked through curtains, some stepping onto their porches, whispering. But all I could focus on was the house. My house. And the unsettling stillness wrapped around it like a warning. 2 officers approached me. One spoke gently but firmly. We watched as the officers entered through the front door. It was surreal. Seeing strangers march into my home with weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the darkness of the hallway. For a moment, I felt like an outsider looking at a stranger's life. Minutes passed. Too many minutes. I kept waiting to hear something. Shouting, footsteps, anything. But the house remained silent. Finally, one officer came back out, his face serious. There's no one inside now, he said. But you should come with me. There's something you'll want to see. My stomach dropped. Elena whispered. I told you. I followed the officer into my own home. And the moment I crossed the threshold, I noticed the first detail, the faint smell. A mix of unwashed clothes, stale air, something metallic. Not mine. Not the house's. Something lived in. Upstairs, the hallway light flickered. The officer pointed toward my bedroom. In here. I swallowed hard and stepped inside. At first glance, everything looked almost normal, my bed, my dresser, my mirror. But then the details surfaced like bruises in the light. Asterisk, my closet door slightly open. Asterisk, clothes on the floor I knew I hadn't dropped. Asterisk, my nightstand drawer pulled out just enough to see it wasn't empty the way I'd left it. And then, the part that made my knees weaken. On the far wall, behind a slightly shifted picture frame, was a small hole. A deliberate one. About the size of a coin. I stepped closer, my breath catching. It leads to the attic, the officer said quietly. We found a sleeping bag up there. Water bottles, food wrappers, and a phone charger plugged into one of the old wiring outlets. I stared at the hole, my skin crawling. He had been watching me. When I slept, when I changed, when I cried, when I got ready for work. A shadow of myself stared back from the mirror across the room, shaking, pale, horrified. How long? I whispered. How long has he been in here? We can't be sure, the officer said. But long enough to know your routine. Long enough to stay hidden. The room felt like it was closing in. My house no longer felt like mine. It felt contaminated by the presence of someone who had moved silently through my daily life, while I remained completely unaware. Then the officer hesitated. There's something else, he said. We found a notebook. My heart sank. A notebook. He nodded. You might not want to see it right now, but it has your name on the first page. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My world tilted, the air thickening around me. My name, written by a stranger, inside a notebook hidden in my own attic. And in that moment, standing in my violated bedroom, I realized something even worse than what had already happened. I didn't want to touch the notebook, just the thought of it made my skin crawl, but the officer said it was better if I saw it before they took it in as evidence. So I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling, while he placed the worn, gray-covered book in my hands. Felt heavier than it looked, like it carried something poisonous inside it. My name was written on the front page in careful, almost elegant handwritten. Not my name, just her. As if he saw me as something personal, claimed. I turned the page slowly, my fingers cold. The first entry was short. My heart lurched. Again? Meaning he'd been here before. More than once. I flipped to another page. She cries in her sleep sometimes. I don't like when she cries. My hands started shaking so badly the pages fluttered. Entry after entry, lists of my habits, my schedule, tiny details I never knew anyone could notice. What time my lights went out. Asterisk how long I showered. Asterisk which nights I tossed and turned. Asterisk what songs I listened to before bed. Asterisk who I talked to on the phone, and what parts of the conversation made me laugh. He had written about all of it. Every part of my life. Every part of me. Then I reached a page marked with a small star. Something inside me told me not to read it. But I did. She never checks the attic door. Not once. Not even when it moves. I felt my entire body seize up. The room around me faded, the officer's voice a distant hum. All I could focus on was my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs. I remembered every night I heard a faint creak in the hallway, and told myself it was the house settling. Every time I felt a draft and shrugged it off. Every shiver, every unexplained discomfort. Every gut feeling I ignored. He had lived above me. Listened to me breathe. Watched me without ever being seen. And then on the last pages things changed. The entries grew shorter. Sharper. More obsessive. She left dishes in the sink today. She needs someone who pays attention. She works too much. I could take care of her. She's lonely. I can tell. She wouldn't fear me if she understood. My breath hitched. The final entry stopped me cold. Soon. Just that. One word. Written 3 days ago. I shut the notebook quickly, hugging my arms around myself as if that could protect me from the chill sinking deep into my bones. The officer took the notebook gently from my hands. "We'll analyze everything," he said. "You won't be staying here tonight. We'll help arrange a safe place." But I barely heard him. I could only think of one thing. He had been preparing for something. Something planned. Something deliberate. "Do you think he'll come back?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The officer paused. And that pause alone told me enough. "We're going to do everything we can," he said carefully. "But someone who lives in a home unnoticed for this long, they're patient. Patient. Calculating. And familiar with every corner of my home." A shiver tore through me. Before the officer could say more, another cop stepped into the room holding a small plastic evidence bag. Inside it was a phone. A cracked older model. Not mine. "We found this in the attic too," he said. It was still plugged in. The officer beside me frowned. "Any messages?" "Yes," the other replied quietly. "Many. Drafts. Unsent. All addressed to her." My blood ran cold. Unsent messages? To me? Like he'd been practicing something he was planning to say. Suddenly, for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt watched again. Not from the attic. Not from inside the house. But from somewhere out there. Somewhere close. As if he knew the police were here. As if he was waiting to see what I'd do next. They wouldn't let me back into the bedroom after that. Not until they finished collecting every trace of evidence from the attic, the hallways, the doors. But standing in the hallway outside my room, listening to the dull hum of police radios, I felt more exposed than ever. It was strange. I wasn't alone, far from it, yet I felt watched in a way no crowd could protect me from. One officer, a woman named Harris, gently guided me downstairs. "You should sit," she said softly. "You're in shock." Shock didn't begin to cover it. "Did he ever try to contact me?" I asked. "Before today?" She hesitated. "We don't know yet. We'll go through the phone." But I saw it, the look she tried to hide. Something grim, something that said she already suspected the answer. When we reached the living room, Elena was still there, wrapped in a blanket a paramedic had given her. She looked up at me with wide, haunted eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "For what?" I sat beside her. "For going upstairs. If I hadn't." "No," I shook my head firmly. "You might have saved my life." Her eyes filled again and she looked away. Before I could say anything else, Officer Harris knelt in front of me. "We need to ask a few more questions," she said. "Anything out of the ordinary lately? Anything missing? Any signs you brushed off?" Her question hit me like a blow. I had brushed things off. Too many things. "I thought I heard noises some nights," I admitted. "Little taps like someone walking slowly." But I told myself it was the house settling. Harris nodded gently. "Old homes do make noises. But consistent patterns, that's different." The guilt tightened in my chest. "There's more," I whispered. I kept losing small things. A hair tie, a bracelet, a pin that was on my nightstand. I thought I was just being forgetful. Elena covered her mouth, horrified. Harris's face hardened. He was testing boundaries, seeing how much he could move without you noticing. Ice pooled in my veins. What else? She urged softly. I swallowed hard. Sometimes, I woke up feeling like the air was colder, as if a window was open. But when I checked, everything was closed. Harris didn't speak for a moment, and in the silence, understanding settled like a weight between us. He had been coming down from the attic into my room while I slept. A tremor moved through me so violently Elena reached out and grabbed my hand. Then suddenly, a voice called from upstairs. Ma'am? We found something else. My entire body tensed. Harris looked at me carefully. You can stay here. I'll check. No, I said, surprising even myself. I need to see it. This is about him. I need to know everything. She didn't argue. We went upstairs again, this time slower, like approaching something unpredictable. Another officer stood beside the attic door holding a small box, plain, metal, and old. It was hidden behind one of the beams, he explained. Harris put on gloves and opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens. My breath left my lungs all at once. They were pictures of me. Sleeping. Cooking. Watching TV. Walking from the shower wrapped in a towel. Leaving the house in the morning. Returning at night. Some were taken through windows. Some through the crack of a door. But the worst, the ones that made my knees weaken, were the ones of me sleeping. Taken up close. So close I could see each strand of hair on my pillow. My arm thrown over the blanket. My mouth slightly open from breathing deeply. Harris carefully pulled out the very last photo, the newest one. It was taken the night before. I was asleep, turned toward the edge of the bed. And standing in the shadow behind me was a blurred silhouette. Tall. Still. Watching. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth. Harris caught my arm. Easy, don't look anymore. But I couldn't stop. He had been inches from me. While I slept, I felt dizzy, the world narrowing into a tight, dark tunnel. This isn't random, Harris said, her voice low. This is fixation. He's built a routine around you. And someone like that doesn't simply disappear. I gripped the banister until my knuckles turned white. She continued. We're moving you to a secure location tonight. And we're putting surveillance on the house. If he comes back. When? I whispered. Not if. Harris held my gaze. And for the first time I said the fear out loud. The fear that had been strangling me since the moment Elena called. He's not done with me, is he? Harris didn't answer directly. She didn't need to. We'll keep you safe, she said instead. But you need to understand, people like him don't let go easily. My pulse hammered, because deep down in a place I didn't want to face, I already knew she was right. This wasn't over. He wasn't gone. He was planning something, and he wanted me to know it. ***. They didn't let me pack anything alone. 2 officers followed me into my own bedroom, my violated space, while I stuffed essentials into a bag with shaking hands. Toothbrush, chargers, a few shirts. I grabbed whatever I could without really seeing any of it. Every corner of the room felt contaminated, wrong, touched by someone who had no right to be here. The police tried to be gentle, but the more time I spent upstairs, the more suffocating the walls felt. I needed out. I needed air. I needed distance between me and the place where he had been hiding, breathing, watching. Once I was ready, they escorted me to a police car. Elena came too. She insisted on giving a statement in person. She and I didn't speak much, but before the car door closed, she grabbed my hand. I'll pray for you, she whispered, her voice trembling. It shouldn't have scared me, but somehow it did. As the car pulled away, I watched my house shrink in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the shadows of the evening. There were officers moving around it, securing it, checking angles, setting up equipment. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else might also be watching. Someone keeping to the tree line, the quiet spots between houses, blending into the dim light. Someone patient. We arrived at a police-safe unit, an apartment complex used for victims who needed temporary protection. It wasn't warm or comfortable, but it was clean, locked, supervised. Harris walked me in, made sure the blinds were drawn, the locks clicked twice. "You're safe here," she said. "No one knows this location except us." "Not him?" I asked.